Well, hi everyone out in Zoom land. My name is Maria Evans. I'm the artistic director for the Arts Council of Princeton. And the favorite part of my job is meeting and working with artists. And so it is a real pleasure to have Tim Andrews interviewing Mira DeMartino tonight. Tim is a former board member for the Arts Council of Princeton. He currently serves on our advisory board. He's a major supporter of our Artist in Resident program, and he is a very avid local art supporter and art collector, and we've learned an awesome interviewer. So we started these in conversations, and they've been doing very well. And tonight we're very pleased to have Mira DeMartino, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years. She has had art in our Pinot de Picasso fundraisers. She had a beautiful show in our gallery last October with Ifat Shatsky. It was a gorgeous show, one of our favorites of the year. Mira is a fantastic artist. I'm not going to spend long going into her background because that's what Tim is going to do for you tonight. So I'm going to log off and welcome everyone and thank you for attending. And I'm going to turn it over to Tim, and we're going to learn all about Mira's very interesting background. See you later.
Great. Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Maria, so much.
So I have to say, Mira, that this is a real thrill. You know, I have admired your work for so long, and on a couple of occasions, I was only one person off from winning and being able to select some of your work at Pinot de Picasso. So, so it's really a thrill to be able to spend time together and to talk about your art and how you've sort of gotten where you are, which is an awesome place. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very pleased. And I thank you for invitation. Really looking forward to talk with you, Tim. Heard a lot great things about you also.
Oh no, don't believe anything. So let's get started. Let's you know, I like to start with sort of the background and sort of learn about people. And so where were you born, and tell us a little bit about your early childhood.
Well, I'm Polish. Everybody can hear my accent, and very proud to be Polish. I was born in Gdańsk, which is on another part of Poland on the Baltic Sea. And my beginning of what I'm doing was in my college. I graduated Academy of Fine Arts. I have master's in painting. So I am originally painter, and I loved what I was doing. I was always painting very big scale canvases. And it was actually the beginning of my sculpting, because I never really liked traditional tools like, you know, brushes. I always had the desire and need to touch what I was doing. I was always adding something to paint to make it thicker, to make it more structural. And so that was my first college. After graduating,
back up. I got lots of questions. I got lots of questions. So when's your first memory of getting interested in painting? That was your first love, it sounds like. So what's your memory of first getting involved in painting as a child?
You know, that was in high school, actually.
Really?
It wasn't like very early love. No, it was in high school. I would even say it was 11th grade when I started, out of boredom, I think, started to draw. And started to draw. I will never forget, it was first my hands and feet. Although, talking about sculpture, actually, I remember when I was a small girl, I was loving Play-Doh. That's what I remember really very well, and my mother does, because I made my mess in the house everywhere. I loved Play-Doh. But talking about the college is literally 11th grade and starting just drawing, and I was like, wow.
You're drawing your own hands and feet? Is that what I heard? You said you were drawing your own hands and feet?
Yes, I was drawing my own hands and feet because I was fascinated how much you can say by different form of the hand. And that was for me fascinating. That I was like looking at the hand as a tool for communication. And I was drawing that. yeah, and then I decided, oh my God, I want to paint. I started to paint, and at that time it was still post-communist country in Poland. I was very not sure I can get to the college doing painting because they usually had only 10 openings and around 400 people, wanted to get there. So it was very interesting because at that time, when you got into architecture at the polytechnics, after a year, you could switch. You lose 1 year, but you could switch from polytechnics architecture to actually Academy of Fine Arts. And I was always great with math. I am very analytical, very unusual way of thinking. I was in high school in mathematical profile class. So I got into architecture. I was 2 years at polytechnics doing architecture, and after 1 year, why 2 years? Because after 1 year, when I got in, they canceled this privilege. They just said you cannot move anymore, and I am suddenly like stuck in polytechnics where I knew I don't want to be an engineer. I just knew from the beginning. So after second year, I decided, I have to try, because there were very competitive exams for painting, very competitive. And I was lucky. I was one of these 10 to get in. And that's how it started.
And so how painting? Was there a teacher in your 11th grade class, or you went from drawing to painting? So was that in your sort of last year?
I started to take private classes. Actually, there was this amazing woman, Ania Gwiazda, who was a sister of a very famous Polish political activist at that time with Solidarity. So she was an artist, and with few of my friends, we were having private classes with her. She was fascinating woman. That was, I think, another reason why I went deeper in it, because she, as an artist, she was not like regular person who tries to make some money doing, classes art. She was like fascinating artist, and it resonated with me.
So were there, as an artist growing up in a communist country, and sort of how did that impact, you think, your ability to sort of think about what you could do? Obviously, you had to be, you thought you had to become an architect to sort of slide in the side, I guess. But sort of how did that impact your ability to sort of think about the free flow of art? I mean, did it seem like it was open and that you could experiment as an artist? Or, obviously your teacher was experimenting and bringing you into this, but how was that different than it might be here for most of us who've grown up in the US?
You know what, it was different probably than the rest of Poland, because being in Gdańsk is a port. So through the shipyard, we were always open to the Western democratic, world. So we were definitely much more conscious. We were definitely freedom driven. That's why the whole Solidarity started there. And we were powerful in our need to express what's in us, and nobody could stop us. So, and remember, this is the time where everything was collapsing anyway. So the whole, regime of the system was completely in the deconstruction. So that was very interesting time to actually live in Poland.
Yeah, interesting. So then you went to college, you sort of did this test or somehow to get out of architecture school and or classes, and you moved into art. So what was that like? What were you striving to do, and sort of how was that structured?
Well, Academy of Fine Arts has different subjects, of course. Painting, there was a sculpture. I didn't go to sculpture because I really didn't know I want to sculpt yet. So I was doing paintings, but as I said, we were pretty free also in our development. Our professors were very open to our explorations. We were, of course, pressed in the very beginning for craft. So there was a lot of drawing, a lot of studying, a lot of still life, to study, and people to do the acts and portraits. But after a while, we were really, all of us, exploring, ourselves. And this is very interesting, I think, college, because this is the place where you actually ask the question yourself, and answer this question yourself. Your professor is like a moderator. He tries to understand what's in you, but the biggest responsibility is on you. When I did my thesis, to do my diploma, my master's, my professor saw my work. I was doing huge canvases, and I was exploring at that time the subject of abstract spaces. The subject of my thesis was to prove unlimited number of abstract spaces. I was coming from realistic space in the mountains, but then my paintings became completely, abstract, but very deliberate. And I was really exploring the possibilities of defining abstract spaces in it. And so when my professor saw it, he literally told me, Mira, you're on your own. Mm-hmm. I don't really get that much of this. You really need to defend. And I remember one of other professors, because there is this big committee which comes and you need to defend that, mm-hmm. and they look at this. And one of other professors didn't want me to allow me to actually graduate, because he came in and he saw my paintings and they were like, what is that? And I had my speech. It's very interesting because usually when you defend your work, the professors ask questions and you answer these questions. Mm-hmm. But in my case, it was very interesting because I started to talk about my vision, about, what I explore and research, and I was like showing. I was the only speaker for a long time. And when I finished, the dean of, painting just said, do you have any questions to ask? And that's how it ended, and I graduated with A. And it was very different, I think, subject. I didn't go with this farther. I could go definitely farther, but then my life started obviously to take turns with independence, with my responsibility to be on my own. And but it was very interesting.
So no figures in your painting work? You were not doing human, you hadn't continued the painting of your...
I am pretty good with craft. I can draw like hyper realistic drawings. Yeah. I was making money during the college doing portraits. And for a while when I came to US, I was doing portraits for friends, for fun. I am pretty good with craft, but I never was interested. I mean, for me, even if you look at my sculptures, you can realize instantly that defining reality is not what I'm interested in. This is completely out of my interest. I really believe when something is too defined and finished is dead, to me. Mm-hmm. I see much more life in sketches for the works than in works, in me. So my sculptures are meant to be like sketch almost, not defined in the details, because I don't want to kill the energy flow. I am right now researching the energy, and this is my reason why I sculpt right now. And I really believe defining and making things super realistically, in my opinion, in my feeling, closes the energy inside of sculpture. And kills one of these abstract spaces I was telling from my thesis. One of these abstract spaces was deliberately not finishing the painting, because you create this way the space between the art and the viewer, that the viewer can step in and finish the painting.
So the imagination
this is one of these abstract spaces, and I still believe in it. I don't want to finish my sculptures the way like realistic sculptures are, because I feel through how I feel that it closes what I want to release.
So when did you come to the States? Were you just out of school, or when did you come to the States finally? What brought you to America?
Sorry. Well, I have to tell the rest of the story in Poland, because when I graduated painting, my parents said, okay, we love you, we paid for all the education, now please go, you know, you have job, right? So prove that you can do something about this. So it was very difficult. Nobody was buying art in Poland at that time. It was just not possible. And so I started advertising agency and worked a little bit with that. And then I decided to open my business with fashion design, because during the college, I was in US for a year modeling in New York City. And I was lucky because I was modeling on 7th Avenue, where they have these manufacturers showrooms.
Really?
So I was very often a model in the showrooms of this, you know, creating, where they create the ideas. I learned so much about the process of creating art, being like this alive mannequin for them. That in Poland, you know, Polish women love to dress. They love to be beautiful. And at that time, there was not much of clothing outside, you know, in stores. So I decided that I will open my business and I will become a fashion designer to just help them. And I love clothes too. So I was like having fun with this. And after that, during being a fashion designer, I met my husband, George, in Poland.
Oh.
George was running American company. He was the international president for American, you know, big corporation. And we met through friends. And we just, you know, were together, started to live together, were planning, you know, family. And he saw that my business with fashion grew so much that he said, you know what? You need to decide whether you will be we will be doing production of clothing, or you will hire other designers to do that under your brand. But I suggest go to do MBA. Go and do MBA to learn, you know, global tools, that you will have a very knowledgeable decision. And I was like, how can I do that? At that time, the college from Glasgow, Strathclyde University, opened division in my city because it was a new economy. We had a lot of people who were working for foreign capital already, and they needed, you know, education, papers, MBAs. And they opened the division, and they basically were accepting people only with papers with economy, you know, college before. And I was obviously not. So, but my husband's like, you can do it, because I was good in math. I started to prepare my GMAT, this, you know, global tests for MBA. And then I was lucky enough that, you know, I passed the GMAT. They had this interview in English with people from Strathclyde, and I told them, you know, I am artist, but I proved with my tax papers that for many years I was very profitable as a fashion designer. And they were like, you know what? Doesn't matter that you don't, because you have practice, you know, you do that in practice. So I did MBA. After arts.
That is so different for an artist. I mean, you know, I think people typically don't think of artists as necessarily business people. And in fact, that's one of the areas where I think artists struggle, is to present themselves and to represent themselves and to market themselves. So that's
but this was necessity, Tim. Remember that it was the environment I was growing up in, like, forced me, you know, to do something. If I wanted to live, I had to make money, and to make money, I wanted to make money doing something I love, you know, to create. And then I was looking for areas where I can create and make money. So, yeah.
So that's always been part of the DNA. It's been, you know, finding a way to make money, I guess, you know, and also pursuing your art. So you earned your MBA, and then what happened?
And then what happened? Then I decided to, finishing MBA, that I quit my business because I wanted to learn how the big corporation works. I was very curious, and my clients were like crying that I'm closing this fashion business. But I decided, you know, to go for some time, and I got accepted right away for a position of marketing director for a national water manufacturer in Poland. So I was running marketing department for them for almost 2 years. Learned a lot, didn't really like it much because it was mass product, not what, you know, I would identify necessarily with. But after these 2 years, I was hired by a big franchise in Poland with an upscale interior designer. They needed the general director for Northern Poland. They had 14 studios, and Northern Poland needed, the boss. So I was so happy because I could tackle the whole business, and I was hiring designers and interior designers. Many people I knew from my architecture at polytechnics. I understood the mentality and those gorgeous products we were doing, Molteni, B&B, like really the best Italian brands with furniture.
So were you in a business role, or were you in a creative role, or sort of a combination?
I was a general director for the whole business.
Okay, so really a business role.
Yeah, very business. But you know what, Tim? I was really treating this as art medium. For me, business, it's creation. I literally was treating this like creation. Constantly thinking outside the box. How can I do it different way? How can I surprise people doing different than other people do? And that's why Nata, the water manufacturer, hired me, because I didn't have any experience. They wanted to attack the whole Polish market. They needed somebody who will be thinking different than all these big Bonaco, Danone corporations from Western world, because people who worked in marketing, they had part in their brand. They would compete the same, and they didn't have a budget. They were a Polish company. They had much smaller budget in marketing. So they needed somebody who will be thinking different way than other marketing people think. And when they hired me after a very complex recruitment process from 300 people, with big practice and experience, I was like, what are they doing? They're stupid. They hired somebody who know really nothing about this. But when I started to work, I knew exactly why they hired me. And I was grateful because that's what I wanted. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to do it different way. And so always business, I was treating completely different than other people would probably.
And were you still thinking about your art through this period? Even though you're running this business and this interior design and beautiful Italian, brands, were you still thinking about the times of painting and art school, or had you sort of moved on and then came back to that sort of, what was?
I have to tell you, Tim, it started in fashion. Because remember, clothing is actually sculpting. It's a design in 3D. So when I was doing clothing, I really treated them like sculpture. For me, I knew then that I miss art, not painting. I miss sculpting. I miss this hands in it, creating shadows, lights, in 3D, and not pretending that I am like a painting illusion of it, So being in interior design absolutely confirmed that, because I was selling literally beautiful sculptures. They were useful, they were furniture, but they were like just gorgeous sculptures. So I constantly in the back of my head was creating ideas. And for me, what was fascinating, this is actually something what started then, and I just grow with this even right now. When I was a fashion designer and I was having clients coming to me, I was treated by these women like psychologists, because it was one-on-one, it was like direct marketing thing. So they were telling me their story. They were coming to me lost very often in like sweatpants, sweatshirt, and they were talking about their vision, who they want to become, how they want to feel. I didn't define those days yet, but I was taking this energy from them, what I heard. And I was going to my studio and I was literally creating clothes that represented that energy, what I felt from them. And I was shocked. I was so surprised seeing how this works. And I started to observe it. And I started to deliberately test it and deliberately experimenting that. What will happen? How will they respond? And they were coming for more and more and more and more, because they were transforming. They were becoming different women. only by wearing different clothes.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, you know what? Yes, when I am in pajama, I feel completely different with different energy. And when I am from pajama, putting, let's say, ballroom dance dress on me, this dress forces me to become instantly somebody different. And I am straighter, I am like more open, I am like ready to move more, I like energy flows into me for dancing right there. So I started to observe. And then when I was in interior design, the same thing. I had people who were coming, they had a house, they had this new money because it was a new economy in Poland, and they wanted to change this interior and the same space. We were just taking all objects with the energy of these objects. We're putting new objects designed by us after discussing with them who they want to be, what the lifestyle of theirs who need to be right now, who they want to become basically. And we are putting objects with that energy, and I was witnessing how people were changing. I was like loving to observe this, that we have no clue, that we buy things, we bring them to our environment, not thinking about this. We think we create the environment, and then this environment creates us. The energy of this object really influence who we become, how we think, what are our habits. It's incredible. And this observation and this experience was so powerful for me that when my husband was suddenly, unexpectedly called to come back to America, I was having this fascinating job. I was making a lot of money, okay? And I knew that at some point I will be sculpting because this was growing in me. And I knew that I will be sculpting with that, with experimenting with energy in art and influence of art on people. And we were pregnant with our first son. We really wanted this pregnancy and it didn't happen for a while. Finally it happened. We were buying big house and suddenly my husband comes home and says, unfortunately, I had a phone call for headquarters and they want me back. We were shocked because it didn't look like it. You know, it was supposed to be much longer.
And how long ago was this? How long ago did you come to the States?
It is 20 years right now.
12.
20 years ago I came.
Okay.
We were living with George 5 years in Gdańsk together. And literally, Timu, I decided, you can imagine the difficulty to make a decision, to leave everything. I literally was pregnant with my first son and I had no clue who I will be as a mother. And I am not super young. I have my mother there. I have my whole support system. I have incredible job, incredible career. And I am supposed to leave everything for a man and go overseas.
And had you been to the US? Had you been to the US at that point?
No, I was modeling for a year.
Oh, right.
During, and then being with George 5 years, I was a few times in America with him to meet his family. So we were a few times, and but you know, I didn't really know much about America. So here I am. I decided to leave everything. Our first son was still born in Poland. He was 6 months old when I came because George was earlier. He was just traveling back and forth. And finally, when our son was 6 months old, I decided to move for good. And I was like literally in the biggest depression and crisis of my life. Because George was workaholic. You know, he was like American worker in the office from 7, 8 to 8 at night. And I was suddenly with the small baby in the country I don't know, left the life I loved and where I was growing. And suddenly I'm living with my Italian mother-in-law, who is, you know, like looking at me suspiciously, who is this person? And yeah, so it was very difficult. I lived with her 3 months because we were looking for a house we couldn't decide. And finally we moved to our new house, which was in the Ramson area at the shore. And I was like, I have to help myself. I was going to Poland all the time, using my green card because that time I had still green card. Half a year almost I was in Poland, half a year here. It was miserable. I was constantly one leg here, one leg there. I really couldn't find peace.
And so when did you start sculpting? So when did you start sculpting?
That's what I'm coming, because I was like, at some point I was like, you know what? I saw these women transformed by objects. I saw these people with interior transformed by objects. I really want to sculpt the sculptures which will represent with energy who I want to become. And I know that these sculptures will help me, that they will transform me. And the problem was I didn't know how to do it because I was a painter. So, you know, I had small children because the other son came here in America. And, you know, I couldn't go to do stone too hard. I couldn't do casting. It's time consuming. Pottery was always too small. I like, you know, big scale pieces. And I couldn't figure how to do it. And literally in meditation, because I was meditating at that time a lot, doing yoga a lot. And in meditation just came to me, you know, take the technique you were using in paintings, because at some point in Poland, when I was painting, the paintings were so big that I started to, you know, I was like, I couldn't move them. And I was like, what can I do to make them substance and lighter? And I had this idea to add aluminum to it. And I was adding aluminum, mixing with paint, with glue, with resin, with things to give this substance, but you know, make it light. And it came to me, meditation, just take this technique from canvas, experiment with this, and start, instead of painting, sculpting with that. And I literally stood up, went to stores to start to look for substitute what I was using years ago. And 3 months later, I was already exhibited in grants for sculpture, like literally 3 months.
Wow, that's amazing. And did you study with anybody? I mean, you sort of started doing this on your own. Did you study with anybody?
I didn't study any sculpture with anybody. I just discovered that I can sculpt this way and started to experiment. I am improving this technique to this day. I am constantly, right now I started to do outdoor sculptures using the same technique, just improving it. And I stood up from this meditation, bought all the materials, and started to do all these sculptures for myself and surround myself with sculptures who I want to become. And then my friends were coming, and they were coming and saying, oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, this is, you know, and Don McLatchy, you know, was my close friend, my dear friend. And she saw this and it's like, I want that sculpture, you know, can you make, and then her husband actually commissioned for her as a gift. She was my very first client. I will be always grateful for them.
And a client and the first client and the first commission, which is awesome. So that's exactly that. How long ago was that? Where are we sort of in the history timeline?
It was 2009.
2009. So not that long ago, 11 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
All my sculpting career is last 11 years.
That's amazing. Well, let's hop in to look at some things. I've got some photos that I have that I'm going to try to share. We'll see how this works. Interesting. So it says the host disabled participant screen sharing. So Maria, I'm not sure whether you can address that or not, but in the interim, so Mira, I know you've got a lot of your work in your home. So let's move to that. And then if I can get back and show some photos, we'll do that as well. So let's start though in your house. So walk us around and show us some of the pieces that are in your home, because they must be your favorites, right? If they're in your home.
There are some my favorites, some which are just my pieces, and some of them are ready for shows which are canceled because of pandemic.
Yeah.
So right now this is not possible, you know, to show them publicly. But I don't know, let's start. This is my dreamer. Dreamer, it's against the window, so you don't see much, but Dreamer is my own sculpture. It's a reminder for me that if I want to grow, if I want to evolve, I need to take time for dreaming, that all the change is actually outside of the box, outside of who I am. So I need to make time to dream. It is basically my reminder of daydreaming and meditating. I'm trying to figure
So
how to make it.
I have a question about that piece. So do you model, are the pieces you do, are they people that are modeling for you, or is it all out of your head? It seems as if you really sort of think in 3D, right? You sort of think in a 3D world.
I don't have a single model. I never had a single model. Everything is from my head. That's why they are not realistic. I am sometimes having, you know, pictures, seeing somebody, you know, on the picture, but I am never, ever taking the picture and copying. That's why I, for example, don't do sketches. Because in the beginning, when I had commission, you know, somebody was like, oh my God, giving me 50%, and it was quite a number, and wanted me to give the sketch, and I could not do that, because when I do sketch, I am sculpting copy the sketch, and the sculpture is dead. It's just copy of the sketch. As I said, I work with energy. I really work with what's in me when I do it. I literally, when I sculpt, I am inspired by maybe some kind of picture on person, but it is always interpreted. I only take what I need from that to what I need to express, what I want to say, like feeling energy wise. That's all.
So no sketch, you just sort of start.
When I start with message and energy, a feeling. Basically, always I start with a feeling.
Yeah.
When I, for example, have commission, I talk to people, right? This is all. I will show you what is commission. Do I have commission here? No, everything is given away. But when I talk to, let's say, to person for the commission, this person tells me, either it's a story they want to capture in the sculpture, either is the feeling they go through at that time, and they tell me about this feeling. They want to capture, remember this feeling, or they are on a path of change and they want to become somebody different, and they are telling me about this vision. Whatever it is, I am taking what I hear, and it's feeling, it's energy, it's feeling, and I'm coming to my studio, and when I start to work, I am like soaking myself in this feeling. Like literally meditative way, I am coming into what I felt from them when I was talking with them. And when I start sculpting, I sometimes don't know what's going on. I literally, you know, when I say this to people like look at me like, what is that? Like, what thing? It's literally like channeling. It's sometimes, not sometimes, often. I finish the sculpture. I look at the sculpture. It's like, when did I do that? I did it? I am like almost surprised. And it's literally working with feeling. It just wants to come out. And sometimes it wants to come out instantly. Sometimes I need to look by adding, subtracting, but it's very easy to me, because it's just wants to come out, and I let it. That's how it works.
And so what's that process look like? Is it many days of work, or are you thinking about it in advance and then you sort of attack you just go until it's finished, or sort of what's that process, that creative process?
Process of the defining the form due to what I feel is pretty quick. The technique needs time, because the technique has layers, has the process, so and the curing time, and so this takes time, obviously, because the sculpture needs to be solid and well done. Generally, there are sculptures that I can do really quickly, because it's just, especially if they're not big.
Mhm.
Bigger ones, obviously, more complicated ones, they take more time for looking and also just, sculpting.
Mhm.
Yeah, so what I can show you, like this one is actually sold, and it was sold, it's very funny. When I started to sculpt, there was Indigo. Remember this Indigo store in Palmer Square in Princeton, which was selling art?
Oh yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So they had this sculpture. The sculpture title is "What's Your Reason for Being?" And it was bought instantly. And 2 years ago, I realized it was bought by a neighbor of mine.
You didn't know. And
Who
you
had no idea, they had no idea. They are art collectors. They have a lot of sculptures. And I met this woman through Garden Club. And when I went to their house, I was like, oh my God, they have my sculptures among all these other, incredible sculptures. So it came back because I did it 10 years ago and it was having a small crack. So I wanted to really refinish this. So it's completely refinished. This sculpture actually was commissioned, but I did the second one. Usually when I do commissioned pieces, I don't do series out of them because they commission. That was the only one, because I love it so much. I don't know whether you will see it. It's a pregnant woman sitting in the lotus position.
Yeah, I can
I
see
call
that.
it conversation. Wait, maybe I will put the light off.
Oh, that's very helpful. Conversation?
Yeah. Conversation. And it's very interesting because when men look at this, they instantly think that this is a woman having conversation with the God. And when women look at this, they already right away know she's conversing with her child, that this is actually the sculpture of two people there. So this is the conversation, and all mothers who are pregnant. Today is Mother's Day in Poland. So
Oh,
exactly today.
So this was a commission for a mother to be.
This was the commission from the father of 4 boys whose wife was pregnant with the 5th child. And they didn't know what it is. And they knew this is the last child of theirs. And he wanted the surprise gift for her, celebrating 4.5 years of pregnancy together. And she's a yogi, so he brought me a picture to generally show me, so there are some similarities, but not, they will see it, but I did this very generic in feel. So that was the gift for his wife from the husband for the birth of the 5th child, and they have a daughter who is right now, I don't know, like 9 years old, because it's also many years ago. And I loved that piece so much that I just made for myself. The second, I will never sell it. They know that I will never sell it to anybody. It's just my piece because I just love it.
So are your pieces, when you make 2 pieces, do you use the first one to make the second one, or is it all with your hand? What's the process?
And that's the thing with this technique, that I cannot do additions like people who do traditional sculpting. They do the design and then they do casting, and they can make addition 30 and send to different galleries. I'm looking for a light, but and I cannot do that with this technique. So I am doing series. If there is a sculpture, that there is a message people connect and they love, it's not commissioned, it's coming from me with a message and energy. I am making multiple pieces, but each one of them is different. Each one is either smaller, bigger, lighter, darker. They have the same feel. They have the same energy, but they all are done as a unique pieces. Like this Dreamer, for example, Dreamer you saw before, I did 6 of the Dreamers. This is something people really connect. Actually, one went in Pinot to Picasso. It was smaller and dark. I just gave to Pinot to Picasso, and after somebody won it, I think it went as like a second. Next day, I got the emails from 2 people that they want the same piece. So I was just.
So when you do a series, do you envision them as living together, or do you envision the series as living always apart?
Could you repeat, please?
So when you do a series, are you thinking about them as being kept, being collected by different people, or do you ever think about them as being a collection that one person would have together?
No, different people, especially, you know, that if people come and they want, very often this is the case, they use the fact that I was interior designer, they invite me to their homes, and we walk through the house and we really literally choose the place. So I instantly know how big, what kind of finish, and I do it to actually really fit well as a focal point in their spaces. So I do it very often this way.
So that's super custom. I mean, you know, commissioning is one thing and giving an idea is one thing, and then you're scaling, but you're placing it, you know, in a home and really thinking about it as a designer would, as an interior, or as an architect. I mean, this all sort of comes full circle in a way, I think, because of your mathematics, because there's so much math in what you're doing as well. I mean, it's very creative, but there's a lot of math, and then the architecture of the piece, and then deciding where it goes. You know, you're sort of bringing all this together in a way.
Like this one also is serious. I call it, this one was at the Grants for Sculpture exhibited. I was twice exhibited in Grants for Sculpture. This one is mine because it was, and it's my memory. I call it Wheel of Life Together. And it's generally the story of a couple that he and she have own dance. We all always have own dance, but at the same time, we have to balance this wheel of life together to be balanced. And so here you can see they pretty confrontational.
Looks very confrontational.
So others are completely, let's say, disconnected. Others are very loving. And I am saying this is a story of one couple because we all have faces and we all sometimes have this or this or this feeling. So that's a series, but each one of them is about a different feel in a couple. And wheels are always antique wheels I buy in antique stores. So sometimes they're metal like here, sometimes they wooden. And I always mount them on these antique wheels. Like this one here, she was at the exhibition at Taplin, and I love this piece. She won first award for me in the international contest because at some point I started to enter the contest to actually see whether people who don't know me and don't know my concept, you know, I started to grow in Princeton area pretty rapidly. And I was curious, is it because people know me and because they understand what I'm doing? Or there is really this energy of the sculptors that people who don't still will connect? And I started to enter, I always win things. And this one won the first award in Arta Vita contest. And I was, as a winner, supposed to go to Art Expo New York City, which was supposed to be in April. And it was obviously canceled. And now it is going to be, they say, in October, but we'll see. So this is the sculpture, which is the main winner. They had like 34 countries of people, like 5,000 pieces of art. And this one won #1.
That is awesome. I want to remind people that there's a chat window on the right-hand side. So if you're interested in asking some questions, I'll be watching there for questions that we can sort of take. Let's move to another piece.
And this is one of my paintings. This is a smaller one. This is a smaller one, which I could actually, you know, transport to US. But this is one of them with the fire in the mountains.
So it's very interesting that your paintings never included figures, but your sculptures really, I think they always include figures. Is that correct? Or have you done work in sculpture that was not a figure?
You know what, this is very, again, conscious choice, because when I stopped doing art and for all these many years was completely passive, I still believe I was an artist, but like passive with, you know, art, I became the viewer. I was very often attending, you know, openings, was going to museums, galleries, being New York City close by, you know how it is. I was really incredible viewer of art, and I realized after these few years that what I was doing, which was very conceptual, very intellectual approach to art, is dead to me. It is just like decoration on a wall, nothing else. And it's pretty, but it's just decoration on a wall. And I decided that when I come back, I will be doing sculptures which will be in service, that there will be sculptures which will be tools for me and for people. And as I said, I am like constantly researching this influence of energy I put in on other, on viewers and owners of these sculptures. And the feedback is unbelievable. I have people who own multiple sculptures because they commission one, and after a while they come and they say, I want another one, and because this is already happening, and I want this one, and I'm making another. I have so many, I call them serial clients who just come because this is working. They very often take the sculpture and walk with the sculpture around the house. They put it in a bedroom, then they put it in the in the kitchen island, to have it around. So it's very interesting. This is very conscious decision that my sculpting is supposed to just connect with the viewer.
And so have you done some outdoor work, or what's the are you doing any outdoor work or any outdoor
This is actually here, I'll show you my first outdoor sculpture, which is tested from, I had it also in Taplin. I did it exactly specially for the exhibition in Arts Council, and I developed this technique for some time. I was, testing it. So I did create this receiver, which is outdoor on my patio for all fall, all winter, now all spring. I'm just not selling because I'm testing. And it's very, again, interesting because she is not that heavy. If this is casted, you would need a crane almost to move it from place to place. You can literally, with the strength, but pick it up and move it from this patio to another patio to another place. So this is like art you can really enjoy being in the lounging area, which is, in fact, I just love her in this place because it just transforms the energy of this patio for me. It's much more relaxing and meditative. And so yes, this is done.
So how different is that technique than the technique you